What is up, guys? Today we're going to be looking at mid laners, the best mid laners for solo queue. And the first thing I want to do before we actually get into it is talk about mid lane Ezreal, specifically this Runeglaive Smite Ezreal. Now this guy is ridiculously strong right now and he is kind of overpowered, but he's getting changed next patch, which is why I'm not going to put him in this video. Now you guys don't really need me to tell you that he is ridiculously strong and you probably should ban him every game, but just for clarity, yes, he is the best mid laner for solo queue right now, but because of the upcoming change that's going to completely remove him, I'm not going to go through in this video. Now, the final thing I want to say before we actually get into the video is mid lane is in a really good spot right now, and there are tons and tons of champions that can carry a game, but these are the ones I just think that can carry hardest, and I'm going to explain why as well. Right, so moving on to the first one on the actual list, at number 5 we have Twisted Fate. Now Twisted Fate's ultimate is ridiculous, it's so strong, like you don't have to outplay anyone in lane, you don't even have to do well in lane, you just have to ultimate to other lanes, get your allies ahead and put the enemies behind. He actually does really good damage mid to late game, and that's only with a few items as well, like getting 2 items is going to be enough to do some serious damage. The biggest thing with him is that you're going to be catching people constantly who are out of position, and that's how you snowball games really easily. After you get someone like that, then you can take a tower, you can take objectives, you can get more kills, and it's like playing with the enemy team only having 4 players, honestly. Now it's not all good, right? His ultimate is crazy, and that's the biggest reason why he's on this list, but his weaknesses are pretty big too. His biggest weakness is that the other assassins in the meta right now are actually really good against him, so if you stay in lane against them, you're probably going to die a couple of times in the game. He's also not as good as some others on this list at team fighting. He only has 2 damaging spells, but one of those is a short cooldown stun, which can actually be really useful in team fights. So moving on to the next guy on this list, we have the golden chicken himself, Azir. Now Azir is one of these champions who is actually very, very hard to play. And to give you an example of this, if you have less than 5 games with him, your win rate is likely to be around 45%. But if you have more than 50 games, it jumps up to 55%, which is really high. He has a really good lane phase and he's very hard to kill with his ultimate if you try and gank him. He can zone people from objectives, which makes taking dragon pretty easy. And he has ridiculous damage late game, and that is the biggest thing. He scales so well with items and he has so much damage, probably higher damage than anyone else on this whole list. Now I can't really mention his pros without mentioning the Shurima Shuffle, right? That is one of the coolest looking plays in the game, and actually to pull that off, all you have to do is use your E and then your Q after, then your ultimate to get people back into your team, and it just looks so cool. So when we're looking at cons, I've already kind of mentioned it, he's very, very hard to play, probably one of the hardest champions in the game to actually get to grips with and to master as well. The other thing is that if you ever manage to lock him down before he can ultimate, then you can actually do some serious damage and kill him very quickly. It's also another thing where he actually needs time to ramp up and time to do damage. Like, he's not really a burst champion, he's a sustained damage champion. Right, so coming in our third place, our bronze medal is going to be Victor. Oh, that reminds me actually, I got a joke for you guys. If you ever, anyone makes a kind of crappy play and you want to give them some nice words of encouragement, just ask them if they've been out in the sun recently, because they're looking mighty bronze about now. Okay, that was awful. But anyway, moving swiftly on to Victor. He has great damage throughout the entire game. He has amazing wave clear, he has huge burst, huge poke, and he can zone people and stun people with his W. He is a really powerful mage right now just because of how long range that E actually is. The thing that catches people by surprise a lot of the time is he has a radius, right, with his E, but if you aim it at the tip of that radius and then extend it outwards, it actually has an incredibly large range, and you should use that to poke people all the time. So that is his poke, right, and that is kind of what he's famous for, I guess, getting chunked by that E so much. But if you ever face check a Victor, he's going to Q you, he's going to E you, he's going to ultimate you, and you're probably going to be dead, honestly. Now I love Victor, but there are some serious problems with playing him, and the biggest one is that he has no mobility, and so you can get camped pretty easily, and you can also get caught out of position quite easily. Another thing is that if you ever want to use more than just your E, you actually have to get pretty close to people because your Q and your R are pretty short range. You know, I mentioned before, like if people face check you, you're just going to blow them up, right? Well, people don't often face check you, so getting close enough to actually use your whole rotation is not that easy in a fight. Saying all that though, his amazing damage and his amazing poke and wave clear is what puts him number 3 on this list. So moving on to number 2 and number 1. Now these guys might actually take you a little bit by surprise because they're not really played in the LCS, but they are incredible for solo queue, and that is reflected in how much impact they have and their win rates as well. So taking our second place, or our silver medal, and don't you worry, I don't have a joke for this one, is going to be Ari. So she has a good lane phase, she has good damage throughout the game, and the biggest thing about her is that she can pick people and assassinate people really easily. She's very hard to gank with her Q with the speed up, and one charm can honestly just win the game or completely turn the tides of a lane. So the reason she snowballs so hard and is so good right now is because if she actually gets ahead, she's very similar to Twisted Fate. She can just remove someone from the game and make it basically a 5v4. Like if you ever catch someone alone, you can 100 to 0 them, and then that turns that into an objective, it turns it into a tower, it turns it into an advantage for the next team fight. The other really good thing with her is that her team fights are actually incredibly strong as well. So she isn't just this pick champion or a pick assassin, she actually has an incredible team fight, which is very rare for people to have both. I actually really struggled to come up with cons for Ari, but she's skill shot based, she's weak to hard CC, and she's not very good against tanks either. Right, so at number 1, and remember this is purely for solo queue, right? This is purely for winning a game and carrying solo queue, we have Annie. Now Annie has a really good lane phase, she has tons of kill potential, tons of damage, tons of stuns, tons of carry potential, and she's very easy to play as well. And when you roll that all into one little package, you get, well, a little girl. She's just so good right now specifically because of this meta, okay? Like we've kind of gone away from the tanks that she struggled to deal with, and we've moved more into these carry orientated people who don't have so much magic resist and don't have so much health. It's actually one of her cons that she relies on burst to kill people, because after her initial burst she doesn't really have much follow up. Now in this specific meta right now where people aren't as tanky, that burst is enough to kill people or take them really low and turn a team fight. Now apart from her damage, she is very good at roaming, getting to another lane and having a big impact, and she can turn losing games around just with one flash good ultimate. Now I've said before she relies on her burst to kill people, right? And if she doesn't burst people then she's kind of screwed, but the other problems are that she relies heavily on flash to have an impact in a fight, and she's very squishy if she's cool. Now as I said at the start, there are tons of viable champions, right? But there are 2 others I think deserve an honourable mention, and these are going to be Diana and going to be Lux. Now Diana is just this huge burst assassin, like she can one-shot people with one item. It is ridiculous how much damage she does, and that is really why she's on this list, because she's great 1v1 and she will just ruin people. So Lux is kind of a different playstyle to Diana. She isn't this burst assassin, well she is burst I guess, but she also has this utility side to her as well. So Lux is really good at picking people, Lux is really good at keeping her team alive, and that shield is really underrated. The biggest thing with Lux and why I think she's so good right now is because you don't really have to rely on your team. Like you can get picks by catching people in a bind and one-shotting them, and that is just really good to have on your team. So that wraps up the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, make sure you let me know what you're playing right now, why you enjoy it, why it's so good in the comments below. I'll stick around there for a little bit, and that's all for this time, but I'll catch you in my next video.